Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a revolution that's shaking up math classrooms, and boy, is it sparking a huge debate. It all kicks off with one pretty provocative question about what students are really doing in class.
So let's just start with that question because it's at the heart of this entire movement. What if most students in your average math class aren't, well, thinking? Because according to years of research, for a huge chunk of them, the answer is not much.
Get this. According to some really extensive research from Professor Peter Liljedahl, this is roughly the percentage of students in a typical math class who aren't actively thinking.
Yeah, half the class. They're not problem solving, they're just following a recipe, watching the teacher, repeating the steps. And this is the exact problem that a very new, very different teaching model is trying to solve.
Okay, so let's dig into this whole idea of the mimicking classroom. What creates it? Well, it turns out the very layout of our schools might be the culprit.
Liljedahl's point is pretty wild when you think about it. He argues that for the last 170 years, the basic setup of a school, teacher at the front, students at their desks taking notes, has basically trained students for this passive mimicry. The environment itself is screaming, sit, listen, and copy, not think, explore, and create.
So if that old blueprint is broken, what's the new one? Well, it's a framework called Building Thinking Classrooms, or BTC for short, and it kicks things off by breaking two really fundamental rules of the classroom.
Okay, so the first big change is all about how students work together. Forget picking your friends, forget the teacher trying to create strategic groups. In this model, it's totally random, every single day, right out in the open for everyone to see.
And the effect of this simple little change is actually pretty profound. Over time, all those social barriers and cliques start to dissolve, knowledge starts flowing more freely between students, and they begin to rely on each other instead of just waiting for the teacher to give them the answer.
The second big change? It's where students do their work. Desks are out. Instead, everyone is up on their feet, working together on things like whiteboards or even windows, a shared space.
Now there's some really cool and powerful psychology going on here. Any erasable surface? It makes it safe to be wrong, which is huge. Standing up gets the energy level up. It's a lot harder to just zone out when you're on your feet. And because all the work is visible to the entire room, good ideas can spread like wildfire.
So that's the theory, but what does this, this controlled chaos actually look like in a real classroom?
Calculus teacher Kelly Spoon lays out a pretty typical flow. And here's the absolute key. Students have to grapple with the problem first. This completely flips the script on that traditional I do, we do, you do model that so often leads to that mindless mimicking.
And teachers, well, they start to develop these really clever, memorable ways to manage this new kind of environment. A routine like this one makes correcting a common mistake a low-stakes, maybe even funny part of the process. It keeps the thinking and the risk-taking alive.
This all sounds pretty awesome, right? Super engaging. But as the B2C model has started to spread, like wildfire some say, a really sharp pushback has emerged, and it's created a major debate in the world of education.
At its core, this is really a clash of two very different philosophies on how we learn best. Is learning about discovering solutions for yourself, or is it about mastering procedures shown by an expert so you can apply them later?
Critics, like school leader Dr. Greg Ashman, argue that BTC is really just a repackaged version of old, failed ideas. The warning is that letting students discover math just overwhelms them, and that there's no real, credible evidence that it actually improves test scores.
And you hear this echoed by some students too. They feel abandoned, confused. They're so used to a teacher showing them the exact steps, and when that's gone, they feel totally lost.
A lot of times the debate comes right down to the research. Critics will point to the evidence, or lack thereof, saying a lot of it is just anecdotal. One online analysis of the studies cited by BTC's founder found that only one even tried to measure effectiveness, and it had a tiny sample size of just 18 students and no control group. So, is it a breakthrough or is it a bust? Well, like with most big debates, a lot of teachers are finding a more nuanced answer right there in their own classrooms.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Many teachers aren't treating this as some all-or-nothing choice. They see BTC as one powerful tool in their toolbox. They might use it to introduce a brand new concept, to get students really thinking, but they'll still rely on direct instruction to teach those foundational skills. And this points to a really key psychological effect. A student's confidence in their own ability might be kind of low.
But the research shows their belief in their group's ability to solve the problem is often much higher in a BTC setting. For kids with math anxiety, that can be a total game changer.
So maybe the best way to look at this is that these methods aren't competing at all, they're complementary. As one teacher on Reddit put it perfectly, BTC helps students build the why behind the math, and traditional practice helps them nail down the how. And you really do need both.
Ultimately, this whole debate over building thinking classrooms, it isn't really about whiteboards or playing cards. It's about something much deeper.
It's really about a fundamental question facing education right now. How much of the traditional classroom, the way we've always done it, are we willing to disrupt to get students to move from just mimicking to truly thinking? And the answer to that? Well, that's going to shape the classrooms of the future.